coming into play here. Got it. So we are live. All right. Last final check here. Yay. Okay, we're live. Well, welcome to this week's Playing to Win. I am super uber excited. It kind of rhymes with your name, actually. Uber means very, very much. My kids were raised bilingual German. I'm very excited for this week's guest, Nicole Zuber. She's an incredible coach, businesswoman, you name it. But I want to just welcome you to the show, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me, Melanie. Really appreciate being here. Hello, everyone.
We're so excited to have you. And let me read a little bit about you, because I know you coach actually our very top agent here at the North personally, which I'm thrilled about. But let me say a little bit of background. I'm really excited to introduce you to our listeners. Nicole Zuber has been a MAPS coach, which is the Keller Williams coaching program that we have here, since 2015. She was proclaimed MAPS Coach of the Year, congratulations, in 2020 after becoming a head coach for operations coaching. Nicole's entire career has been built from her desire to influence, inspire, and motivate those around her to pursue their dreams, discover their full potential, and defy the odds. I love that. Since 2003, Nicole has invested her time and expertise to produce over $4 billion in sales with a B through her real estate businesses and partnerships. Nicole has served as director of operations, listing agent, CEO of her own businesses. She firmly believes that having firsthand experience of industry being out in the trenches strengthens business partnerships. It's a lot of words there, to a much deeper and authentic level. When she isn't pouring into others, you can find her creating new experience through international world travel, watching and studying American football, or practicing yoga. Nicole lives in Austin, Texas with her husband and business partner of 20 years, Craig, and their children, Zach and Aspen. So just welcome to the show, Nicole, one more time. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I haven't heard that bio in a while. There are a couple numbers need updated.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I asked for your assistant. I'm like, hey, could you just send me a bio? I always love to read one before a guest comes. So I'm just so, I've watched you from afar all these years, like at a distance. So you're somebody I don't know as well as some of my other guests I've had on. So I'm really excited to have you, because I get to hear more about your story and who you are, because I think you're amazing. And I think that anywhere you are speaking, I want to listen, because you always have something cool to say. But what did I not say of in your bio that you would like the listeners to know before we kind of tell us? Just tell us who you are. Who's Nicole Zuber?
Oh gosh, I'm usually asking the questions, right?
I know, right?
It's gonna be like a therapy session. No, I'm just kidding. So no, you nailed it. I'm super passionate about serving, and one of the gifts that I had to learn and fail forward through with leadership is seeing what you see in others as a leader, what they don't see in themselves. Yeah. I mean, I'm very fortunate that that's how I even got here at KW. Was I had an OP who saw something in me at the time that I did not see in myself. I was broken and scared, and it was after the market crash and lost everything, and barely surviving. And then we plugged in here, and we started following these things called systems and models and proven processes. It's the weirdest thing ever. That book, Red in Color, Man with the Mustache, Gary said.
Yeah. Heard of him. Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard of him. And just rebuilt. And so very, very, Melanie, before this, you and I were talking, I pride myself on being a shift-proof coach. And my husband of 20 years, he, in the last downturn, that demographic cliff of 2009, we literally lost it all. Weren't even sure how we were going to put food on the table for our babies. I had clients that were having, heart attacks and strokes, and you name it. It was just a very crazy time. Not sure how my marriage even survived. Like, looking back on that, I'm like, what the heck?
Exactly. Where were you guys at that time? Where were you guys in 2009?
We were in Boise, Idaho. So we had a real estate business in there in Boise for about 16 years. And we started at a boutique brokerage in 2003. And then, started before it was really cool to sell real estate. and then started kind of riding the wave. And then it was really cool. And then we decided to open up our own. I mean, we actually owned a Century 21 for a short amount of time. And then the market completely tanked.
Oh, right before all that started happening. And that was in Boise also, right?
Yes. I would
Okay.
say I was 26 years old and I didn't know my head from my tail. So,
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Amazing. And then what a time to be an owner is going into that market. Yeah. You learn a lot
yeah,
of lessons quickly.
just saying. So
Yeah. I remember that market well. I wasn't the owner, but I was the leader. And I understand greatly what you're talking about.
yeah.
So talk
So
about that some more, because I mean, I love that you say you're shift proof coach, and I really want to dig on that. So talk about, continue your story, because I think that's, so many people need to hear that message right now because of all the fear that's out there. So what happened? You bought the C21 franchise, and then the market, what happened then?
well, we bought the C21 franchise. We were riding the hog. We were over leveraged, undereducated. We were building properties in Hawaii, which I actually moved to in 2018 or 17 for a year. I'll tell you about that another time.
That's
And ran my
awesome.
team via Zoom pre-COVID. So
Nice.
we just over leveraged, undereducated, and just focused on gross. Let's just say that, focused on gross, not the expenses, not the, and then which obviously leads to the profit or cost of sale for that matter. But we're not doing budget conversation lessons today. I'll tell you, just if you want to learn that, you could reach out to me later.
Which are so important to know,
Absolutely,
everything.
absolutely.
It'll make or break you. Yeah, exactly.
So being shift proof, like it's a mindset, like shift to shift. It's going to happen no matter what. I wasn't studying the economy, like how fortunate we are today. Like with Gary has been like locked in with us, like side by side since COVID, just month over month. This is the state of the company. This is what's happening with the GDP index. I did not know any of that stuff. And I wasn't even tracking budgets or net worth or anything like that. And had we applied all of those things then, or I knew those then, I wouldn't have gone through the hell. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say
Sorry,
that.
Mo. That we went through. I'm grateful we did though, because today, like how do I want to say this? Because as a coach, you can't do the job for the people. You have to lead them. Like you have to lead them to the water, and maybe throw in a salt tab or something so they can drink it. and just seeing things that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. Because I learn in the trenches.
Yeah.
I
You
learned
have to
just going and
self-discover,
getting
right?
yes.
Yeah, you have to do that though. That's the real, you can learn from others, and we all learn from others. But when you've lived that, Nicole, like you guys lived it, where you went from so high, so much success, so young too. You guys were so young, right? And just kind of spending money, not really paying attention to what you're actually like. You weren't really running a business the way you run it today. That's why you're so good at what you do. But think about that. So the market crashes, you're losing everything.
Yep.
I just want to stay on that before we go into other things. How did you get out of, like, how did Keller Williams find, like, how did you get out of that?
Yeah, so my husband and I, we have high pain tolerance, which is necessarily not a good thing sometimes. It's good for grit and grind.
Yeah. How are
And
you feeling?
you're supposed to elbow your way out of things, like, or not, you're not supposed to do that like for your entire career. Things actually start getting easier. So we got out of it. I mean, I guess surrendering. We just we surrendered. And my husband has a phenomenal story about his version and perspective of that. And you should interview him on that sometime. And we surrendered. And it's interesting because when you do that, it's in how providence prevails. So when we were doing all those things, there was no North Star. I think it was, when I look back on it, it was very ego driven. So there was no North Star, there was no why or purpose behind. We were just doing it. Like, I'm King Kong, I'm going to take over the world. Yeah, that didn't last very long in the long term.
It's a lot of the lives that agents live, still today.
Yes. So I didn't know that this industry, and Gary said he said it verbatim, look at my notes here, is averaging. Most agents look at their best year. So y'all, if you had your best year ever last year, the year before, statistically you're not gonna have it because of what is adjusting in the market. Now, I'm not saying that to be a doomsdayer or it's not possible by any means. I'm not saying that. Hear me out. What I'm saying is statistically, the market has dropped 35% from where we were last year, right?
Right.
And so, and NAR has put out those stats. I'm not making that up. So, and Gary has been so intentional about sharing those numbers with us. And so, if you made what, 100 grand this last year, based off of the sales and transactions, you're looking, if you don't go out there and go do what it takes to be shift proof, you're looking at like
5
a lot less. Well,
or whatever. Yeah.
you still have to do all those things. You're going to work harder for, and it could be for like 65 grand. So
Could be.
good math,
Maybe.
good math,
Yeah.
good math. So absolutely. So shift to shift, the market's going to do what it's going to do. And it is not for and I don't want to, I know the shift book in and out. It's not about the selected few, it's for the few that choose. Remember that. Not about the selected few, it's for the few who choose. They choose to roll up their sleeves, they choose to study the market, they choose to become the economist of choice. And it's not comfortable. Oh my gosh, the Lord did not put me on this earth to be a numbers person. I had to fail profusely, and now I can't live life without him. So
I understand this completely. So how did, but okay, so how did you get to that though? Because you had to talk more about that surrendering and what, how did, like, you guys were just losing everything, or what
we
made you
lost.
guys,
Oh, we
you
lost
lost everything?
short.
Okay.
I remember we short sold. We never foreclosed on any properties. We short sold everything, and all of like our investment properties. And I mean, I was carrying 30 short sale files at a time, and it was very uncertain
Yes.
time. And
Yeah.
when you surrender and providence starts prevailing, like we're just like, God, just show us something. And Craig met Erica Hill, who is our OP. And I'm going to do my best not to tear up. I still do it since 2011. And I didn't meet Erica until like mid-February. And I told her, I'm like, I'm not joining. Like, I spent so much time with her, and she cared and she listened. And the most freeing thing was I was telling her all these things, and she's like, you're not the only person going through this.
Yeah.
And that felt
Yeah.
great. So you're not the only person. And I think I was just feeling so isolated.
Well, yeah, there's so
And
much shame around it. You felt probably so much shame, like, oh my gosh, I've failed or whatever. And you're thinking partially that you are alone in it, right?
yeah, so that was great. And she invited me to a team meeting, and I was like very reluctant to go. And it was on my 31st birthday in 2011. And she introduced me, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't want people to like all ego, and just don't. And signed up that day. Weird, right? And never looked back.
Yeah.
And within the first month of being with KW, she introduced me to this thing called the net worth tracker. And I instantly plugged everything in. Like I was so thirsty to learn. And I plugged everything in, and at the bottom of this net worth tracker, it said -842. Negative $842,000 net worth, March of 2011. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
And I was like, what the heck? And it completely put a fire in my belly that I had never had before. And I had motivation and excitement again. And Gary says you could be where you want to be in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
5 years it took to turn that number into a positive. 5 years. So
yeah,
and we've never looked back, and been so intentional about how we study and we invest and keep pulling to that bigger reason.
I love that. I love that so much. So when you did that net worth tracker, and you saw that your net worth was almost $1 million in the hole, right?
What the heck?
Wow, like how did we get there from like having all these other things that we had, right? And being willing to do the work to do it the right way next time. I think that was probably the biggest lesson you could have had in business, that you'll never ever let yourself be in that position where you don't know your net worth, you don't know what you're spending, right? And this has become such a passion of yours in your coaching.
Very much so. Very much so. The term accountability to me, I mean, it means something to everyone else. Like accountability does not mean like drill sergeant and push-ups and but like that's not accountability. To me, accountability is knowing where you stand at any given moment, knowing where you are where at any given moment. Think of your fitness and your tracking. Think of, so same thing with your net worth or your, your passive income trackers or whatever. So think about it as your business as well. Do you know what your pipeline looks like? Do you know what you're slated for? Like your opportunities that are going to feed your family in the upcoming quarters. Do you know that? That's called accountability, in my opinion.
That's one of the best descriptions I've heard of that. And I've done this a very long time, right? But accountability is knowing where you stand at any given moment. I love that. I love that. I love that. And so many people resist taking a look at that when and like, why would you not want to know exactly where you stand right now? Because guess what? There's no emotion around that. Like, I mean, there might be when you realize you're negative $840,000 in the hole. There's a lot of like gut punching there, but you know what I mean? Like, too many people just avoid accountability because they don't want to see what they don't want to see. And at the end of the day, when you're not willing to take a look at what's really happening, then you're not really willing to take control of your life.
For sure. And Gary says tactic 1 of shift. You got to get real to get right. Period. And people hide to where they don't want to go most. So if you're like, I mean, I can go into 4,000 different other scenarios with that. But how are you going? So if you have an idea or a vision or goal of where it is you want to be, you got to know where you are at like where you're starting from.
Yeah.
So if it's really true and passionate and you're passionate about it and you know where you want to go, you got to know where you're starting from. Think of endurance racing, running a marathon. Like you're not going to just go try it the first day. I mean, maybe some of y'all will, but, and how many of you will make it across the finish line?
Yeah, exactly. And you think, because it's a baseline, right? It's just a baseline. Like knowing where you are, where you stand at any given moment is just like taking your blood pressure or whatever, right? It's like, what's your weight? What's your bank account telling you, right? You need to have these basic baseline measures, but it's in everything that you do. And that's where, in my opinion, as being a, executive team leader for so long of just like working with the top people is like, if you don't take a look at who you really are, right? How will you ever get there? So like I have one of my mentors in my life, she says, what invisible wall is holding you back? And a lot of times it's just taking away the invisible wall to look at where you stand at any given moment. And people resist that, right? Because it's like they don't want to go there. What made you, okay, so I love that. Thanks for sharing that about then you went in, you signed that day. So how did you get led to coaching? Like what happened then once you joined KW? You guys were doing sales apparently, right?
Yes, we were actively in production. And I think I told you this in the beginning, my husband's a 3rd generation agent on both sides of his family. So his parents, both sets of grandparents retired from the industry. And when I met him, he's like, I don't want anything to do with real estate. There you go, Craig. I just, and then look what he's doing. By the way, you're going to do a podcast and I just told you our little life story.
We've got you all set up. Yeah, exactly.
We got you all set up, babe. So,
I love it. Yes.
My best friend and business partner.
Oh, well, you guys are such a great team. I love following your guys' lives on social media. And I think you really are impact makers. I love having impact makers on the show. So you came back, you're doing your sales and all that. And then how did you, because I know you're both coaches, right? Like were you already coaching by then or did it? No, let's talk about that journey because that's a real passion of yours, obviously.
So again, we learned this thing called net worth and then I started really looking, and this is not a best practice, by the way, guys. So like looking at my bank account every day, you should be looking at other things because that the bank account is the lag measure. Don't look at your bank account. I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And I remember we had I'm going to just throw an arbitrary number. It was like $800 or $900 in our bank account. And this thing called Bold came in to town. And so we used the last pennies, and Craig and I looked at each other and we made a decision and we're like, we can't afford not to. We can't afford not to do this. And we did. And forever, 9 trophy, 10, whatever, like if our lives forever changed. Our lives forever changed.
That's
amazing. It's there.
Because you took so I know so many people who say that story. I did not know that was one of yours with Bold, that, you know, you're to the last pennies in your bank account, right? Or somebody takes it.
Literally.
I have a friend who had lost everything and literally the room paid for him to go, right? You hear about these stories about taking a chance on yourself by betting on yourself, because why do you think Bold did it? What about Bold did that for you? Like, what got you guys on track?
And
Because it's
when
not a
you,
magic pill. It's not a magic pill, obviously.
no, it's not a magic pill. It's, I mean, it's there. Like you just have to implement, you have to want it and believe in it and then go do it. Like, period, execute it. Because preparation with, and to prepare, you're never going to get anywhere. You got to go and execute and learn and fail forward. And we just applied. I mean, it was so simple. And I loved the dreaming. It got me to dream again.
Nice.
And I mean, the same thing you guys, like through COVID, like we all forgot how to dream. There was a time. So I'm finding that happening even today. Go back out and dream. Go back out and dream. So
I love that. You know, and I think what Bold really hit on for people is just getting back in the, you know, it's an inside out job, right? It's an inside out job. And so that's starting with like getting your head right so that you can dream again. And it also gets you into activity, right? So it's like, no matter where you're at, you're measuring where you're at. And then there's an end result in Bold if you play all in. So, wow. So Bold was a real pivotal launch for you guys. I love that, to get back into the game. Just, it sets you up in systems and habits. And okay, so what happened then?
Then we just, we took off. We really did. We took off, and like we were like, this is bad. I don't know if I should even say this, like arm's length. I think the statute of limitations are gone. I'm an open book. I'm like, like we were home tending short sales that we were sitting in because we didn't have anything. And so I remember I was running one day in our area, and I ran in I found this subdivision. It was very rural, like beautiful horse country. We were out in Eagle, Idaho is where we lived. And there was this one house. It was beautiful, and there was a flyer in it, and I pulled it up, and it's like this, you guys will like this. It was like a 4,500 square foot house for like 300,000, brand new build job, like granite or quartz and tile and all the things on a half an acre.
Wow.
And I don't know what possessed me. It must have been the runner's high. I called the agent, and the builder was the agent's wife, and talked to her, and come to find out the builder and the developer were the same person, and they did an owner carry and let us build our own house. And so we started like, and so we built a home, and it was like the greatest thing ever, because it gave us that our roots and our foundation to rebuild our lives.
It's kind of, yeah, it's like the foundation for everything else that came, right? Of like the new beginning, the new chapter for you guys, right? Of like on the upward of rebuilding, and this time we're going to rebuild it right. Like the right way. I mean, that's normal, right? You learn that in life when you get burned a few times and lose everything. So then, okay, so that's amazing. And that's a beautiful story. So how did the coaching start though?
So after Bold, like it was kind of like spring training as the way that we, like, it's a way to condition yourself to get back into the big leagues, right? And I'm going to speak for myself. I had confidence. I'm naturally a systems person. I understand both sides of the game. I love sales, and I love creating a mess and cleaning it up. I don't like staying in a mess. So I do not like staying in a mess. So I like to go out and execute. And I execute on plans, not ideas. Yeah. For you rainmakers out there, you execute on plans, not ideas. So we created our game plan for the year, and I had confidence and excitement, and through coaching, learning what we learned in Bold, we had started creating reserves. Novel concept, right? And we were able to afford getting a MAPS coach. And Ray Wayne was our very first MAPS coach. Love you, Ray.
Oh, she's great.
And she helped us. And influence to help us see like the relationships that we had in the community. Like we had great relationships with builders and developers and let alone our resale business. And went out, I started door knocking to developers and builders. And we landed this really amazing project. And it was again, the builder was a developer, and we rocked into that, and that set us up for a couple of years.
Amazing.
And as we were doing our resale stuff, and then those were more townhome condos, and then we went into new construction. Same thing, we just found creative ways. Like we went and partnered with a builder who had an on-site agent builder team, and they had a problem subdivision. It was kind of quirky. They bought it in the downturn, and we put our team out there, and we were the on-site agents, and it was
that's awesome.
We sold out. It was super awesome opportunity. And our coach helped us see those things that we didn't know otherwise.
So did that inspire you to why you wanted to do that for other people, or because to me, I think when I think of top coaches in Keller Williams right now, you and your husband totally come top to mind in the top for me. So what Ray did really was help you guys just kind of put yourselves together, right? It kind of just put all of these talents that you had obviously super smart, talented people, because, a zebra never changes its stripes. That's why if you've been successful once, you can be successful again. So that's why you never fear a market, because if you've been successful in a downturn, upturn, you can do it. You just have to do it another way, right? And so to me, when I said about the removing the invisible walls, it seems like she kind of helped you guys, like see your blind spots, right? Or whatever, and put it together and reveal, like it's like with a racehorse, right? You take the goggles off, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I can see. And you had all this opportunity that came after that because you had a plan. And I love that comment that you said, execute on plans, not ideas. We can all be very creative, but the plan is what will actually, get you there. Again, and I know I sound like a broken record. When was the moment you decided I have to do this for other people?
So, and again, not to attempt to tell Craig's story, he was approached because he's very straightforward, Marine, hard charging. And he was approached and asked, hey, would you like to be a bold coach? And he didn't. I mean, he at that time he did not, and so they tried other angles, and then they offered do you want to come out to try to be a one-on-one coach? And he literally from the time, and so when in the beginning I said I've served every role in the organizational model, literally every role in the org chart. When he started doing that part-time, I started taking on more of the CEO role, because the timing and lead listing agent. So we had to transition because half of his time was in coach. All of a sudden he had a full-time roster, and all of a sudden he had more people knocking down. It was just a natural progression.
Coaching clients, right? That wanted to coach with him. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
And in that first year, he went from 0 to oh my gosh. And we had to be really intentional because we worked so hard to get to where we were. We didn't want to, Gary always said, don't burn the ship in the middle of the ocean that you built.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
We're intentional not to do that. So within the first year, then because we had all of those other pieces going. So I just had to jump in, and Craig's always had somebody behind him taking his job away from him so he could go, like the Red Book says. So
okay, so he was approached as a bold coach, and then and then he took on the coaching opportunity, and that exploded, and you took over more of the business side of your real estate business.
Correct. And listings. And then so I had to replace myself as director of ops, and I had then that was a whole nother round of growing pains, because when he was our CEO, if you will, the vision was a little bit different than when I was just the CEO. So when you have two rainmakers together, if you will, and Ray really helped us out. Craig and I have both very strong personalities, and there can only be one chef in the kitchen, and when it comes to this,
I have
so
respect for you guys.
woo.
Woo, impressive.
So, any of my past team members, I apologize. Like, if I owe you counseling for life, call me. So, lots of fun growing pains.
Oh, good.
So with that, it's so the vision changed, and by then, like how it showed up, how business was showing up got a lot easier because we had put these foundational pieces in place, like this thing called the 36 touch plan and nurturing your met database. And then we had the, those other streams, other businesses with developers, new construction.
Yeah.
So
when you say the vision change, though, sorry to interrupt you. When you say the vision change, do you mean just because you think more operationally a little bit on? I know that you live in both worlds, but do you feel like you lived a little bit, maybe you brought more systems mindset as the visionary, or what changed, do you think?
To some capacity. So Craig, he was learning things through coaching that he and I would meet on, and I'd go apply it. Like, it was just simple, practical application.
Gotcha.
And some of the stuff he was learning, I'm like, this is awesome. I want some of that. So then we figured out a way, and I came in part-time as a coach, and I think I had 10 clients, and I would coach on Thursdays. I do like structure, if you can't tell. I'm a calendar junkie. So I'd coach on Thursdays. I'd go on listing appointments Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays in the afternoon, and lead gen in the morning. And then Monica Reynolds coached me while I was doing all this fun stuff. And it was, like, I'm telling you, this is like therapy. I'm like, wow, I'm going back in my, going back in, it's so fun.
I'm learning so much. I love it. And I know our listeners appreciate you sharing. So continue, please.
All right. So same thing kind of happened in coaching, and I had to be really intentional. Like, okay, we have a business, we have this, and so Craig and we're always like, growth is not bigger, better, like more. That growth could be wide, growth could be deep.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind, especially when you built a supposed empire on quicksand, like I did in 09. That was fun. So we had built a great foundation and did not want to lose sight of that. So we traveled like so much with our kids, like taking them and sharing experiences with them is everything to us. They're our very best friends. And so we had built and developed in Hawaii, in Maui, excuse me, before the downturn, and that was a big piece that helped contribute to our Miss Callis taking us down. So we love that place. There's something incredible about that island. And there was a time, I'm going to kind of shortcut this. There's a time that we were out there and we were like, we're coaching. Craig, your career's here full time. I've learned how to have 411s and track lead measures and all of those things. Like, why not? Like, why couldn't we go live there for a year, or why couldn't we go live there and run our business from there?
Yeah.
And it was just such a mind-blowing experience, because I remember we were talking to Tony DeCello, and Craig was like throwing this idea and this vision there, and I was watching Tony, and Tony's like, and all of a sudden he said, why not? And I was like, I'm moving to Hawaii. That was what I committed inside. And so it took a good year we made that decision, and it took a good year to set the business up so that we could. What I will tell you, when the vision changed, is when I was so crystal clear on what that new vision looked like, I looked around the entire room of 13 something people, and only 1.5, I say half because she was part of it, only 1.5 people persons in that room fit the new vision, because the others, I had binkies in their mouth. I'll own it. Like, and there's no way I could put the Pacific Ocean between them and us.
Oh.
And so it was
chills hearing that, because I think a lot of us in a room of our teams, would, if you're really, being honest with yourself, that really matters. Who do you have
Yeah.
around you? So you couldn't do that if you didn't have those people. So the vision changed. I love that. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's good. And so I was like, oh boy.
Wow.
And again, that vision was so crystal clear. And I like, it was so transformative when Tony said, why not? And so then I found myself for the first time running towards pleasure, not running away from pain, running towards something. So think of it, guys. You have a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. Like, think of all of those obstacles that are going to come. All of those obstacles, and this was a family decision. And all of those obstacles for a year that I had to overcome, those were stepping stones because the vision was so clear. And I knew if I lived in regret, I did not want to be in my 90s one day sitting on a rocking chair wondering, what if I would have moved to Hawaii?
Yeah.
And so we did it. We worked our tails off. We rebuilt, and did it. And so it was.
And you will never know, or you will never have that. What if we had, right? You'll never had that. So you were there for like a year or what?
Yeah, 52 weeks. So
to be who's counted, right? Yes.
Well, so we were there. We worked for 51 weeks. And there was a little tax strategy in there. So
okay.
We were there for. We went with the commitment as our family, like we're going to live here we're going to commit to a year, because we've seen people that go to that island and they go on vacation and they never come back. And then we see people that go on vacation and they're like, this is so phenomenal, and we're going to move here, and they move there and they're back in a month, like whatever. So we made a commitment, no matter what, we're going to stay there for a year. And we were all hands on deck, the 4 of us. And so about 6 months in, we realized like, this isn't like, for our kids, like they are everything. If you haven't heard that already, they're everything. And we also knew, though, we didn't want to go back to Boise. So it was challenging, because then I had a freshman in high school and a 6th grader. Like, and I was like, I'm going to ruin my kids' lives. Like, what have I done? So that doubt. We all have doubt, right? So having to work, and again, having great coaches like Tony and Diana and those guys, they helped us. Monica, they all helped us just rally around and get clear on what it is we wanted. We were looking at Florida, South Carolina, Austin. We've been coming here since 2012 for work. And I started getting on airplanes and meeting, researching schools and caring. And I tell you what, so when I came to Austin, looked at other places, and when I came to Austin, I went to Westlake High School, and I was like, this place is cool. I went to Austin High, and the moment I came up to Lake Travis, the counselor, she said, "Oh, honey, you're at the wrong lake." and fast forward to now, I know I'm kind of going off. I couldn't imagine a better place to launch our kids off to doing what they're doing now. Our son is in his sophomore year at Ole Miss, having a blast. And our daughter is a junior, and she just hired her college coach, and we're starting to look at schools for her.
Amazing. Yeah. And you picked Austin, and you don't live far from me, and your kids go to the school my kids went to, and it's so amazing. Crazy. I love that. Okay. So now what is do you guys still run a team in Boise? Are you full coaches? Tell us a little bit about like what the world looks like for you today.
So when we moved here, I was still running the team. And again, Craig is like launched, he's become a head coach, executive coach. Like, he just keeps, always going. And so I know what it takes to build and develop and maintain a successful real estate business. And I had to look in the mirror. And in 2018, I had to look in the mirror, and I realized I know exactly what it takes. I'm just not willing to do it anymore. I'm just not willing to do it. It's not right or wrong. It is. And that was a decision that I'm so grateful to be married to somebody who is my business partner, and his name was on it too, this is your decision. So I was really clear that I wasn't willing to do it for myself anymore, and I wanted to do it for others. So with that being said, we sold our real estate business, and I went all in coaching. And then since then, I did come in and became a head coach, running the operations department, operations coaching. And I do coach a lot of CEOs. I coach like CEOs and DOOs or COOs at the same time. It's
Okay.
a lot of my
Yeah.
roster is in
Okay.
executive coaching.
Okay. Awesome.
And so went all in, sold the business, and I'm so grateful. Like, just we're
Living the
been
life. Yeah. I watch your life and I think, wow, I love that you guys are so living in alignment with it. You seem from the outside like you really enjoying what you do and you love what you do. And I admire that so much. Here's a question I ask all my guests because I don't want to run out of time. What does playing to win look like for you, Nicole? What does playing to win look like?
Well, it's definitely not playing to lose, playing not to lose, definitely not that.
Yeah.
Running towards pleasure, not running away from pain. So like running towards what it is that you want. And if you don't know what it is, it's okay. Figure it out. What does it say? Talent knows what they want or where they're going, or they're actively seeking. Just total transparency after like going through COVID and stuff. I'm so grateful for the time that we spent with our babies in our house, my 19-year-old 6'2" baby, and my beautiful, well, she looks like she's 20, but and like after COVID and coming out of that and finding a new normal, because we're like, I had to leave what it was like before COVID and how life was. We all had to. It's not this exact same. So I spent a lot of time, and especially my kid going off to college, that was, whoa, like I was a mess.
Big
So
adjustment. Yeah.
all this transitional stuff, I had to get clear again on what it is. So what does a win look like? What does our 5-year look like? My husband's really big. He does a great class on how to create, like, who you become, what you aspire to be in 10 years and from now, and then who you become within those 10 years along the way. And you don't want to live so far in the future though that you're not present. So playing to win is just knowing where it is that you want to be and just giving yourself grace along the way if you haven't figured it out.
I love that. Don't live so far in the future that you aren't present in the moment. I love that. I think the someday goals are really important for people. And yet that's why you have to go backwards to, like, what's that one thing right in front of me, that domino right today that I need to do right now and take action on, that's going to lead me to that will lead me to lead me that, right? And, same thing. I totally get that it's the impact piece of helping other people achieve what you are achieving, not have achieved. You have achieved it, but every day you're achieving it. And you're growing and learning. You're not, by nowhere means none of us are done, right? We're all learning.
There's not a
every single day.
destination.
No, exactly. We are a journey every single day. Back to the shift proof coach, because I want to end on that note a little bit. Just what is some advice you would have for people that are maybe not experiencing the success or have not made that adjustment? Because I remember because I started in Reno, right? Like that was it's very similar to Boise market. And so we went through the same market you did. And it was so interesting to me how people were like in denial about what was actually happening and that they needed to learn short sales. They needed to learn foreclosures. And yet this market right now is different, but similar, but the skill base is back, right? What's your advice to anybody of our listener today, if they're not, they haven't made any kind of adjustment, or they're not seeing the success that they want to see, or they're fearful about what's to come? Any advice you'd have for them?
Yeah, you touched on this earlier, and I want, like, it's the logic piece. So if you're not a student of your market and you don't know what's happening, you don't know how many new properties have come on the market this week in the first 4 days of the year, if you don't know what is happening week over week, what's going under contract, like just knowing your numbers of the market. I'm doing a breakout at Family Reunion about this, and it's when to hire in a shifted market, when and how to hire in a downshifted market for that matter.
Awesome.
But if you don't know your numbers, you guys, numbers, they cut the emotion. So in bold, they teach us logic makes us think, emotion makes us act. Think about that. So negative $842,000. That was real. That wasn't fake. That was a real logical number. It made me think differently. Therefore, I felt differently. And I went out and I acted differently. On the other side too, if you're not talking to your sellers about how many properties have come on the market, who their competition is, and you're not studying that on a day-to-day basis, I'm just going to say it, Mel, you're not being a fiduciary. And you have a fiduciary responsibility to protect your client's best interests on the buy and the sell side. And if you're not studying those numbers, you're not being a fiduciary. There, I said it.
Yeah.
So,
and that's such a simple solution, right? Like it's such an easy data point to pull, and yet the consumer doesn't have really the access. And so they're hearing what they hear. And how can you interpret what's happening in the market if you don't know that answer, right?
We call that water cooler talk. So if you are not studying your market and you don't know, you're letting everybody at the water cooler influence your perspective and the news and the media. When, let's be real, has the market ever gone to zero? People need to buy and sell no matter what the market's doing, whether you have to write a $50,000 check or short sale or that's back in the day. People have equity in their homes, y'all. Like, it's not like they're going and they're in position. I'm not saying people don't have hardship, but most people have equity in their homes, and you're not having to write a check to get out of the closing in most cases. And there's still people that are getting married, getting divorced, dying, having kids, growing. That need is not going to change. It's just the amount of people that have raised their hand to do that has changed. So you got to change with that number.
Yeah. I love that. What do you love? Why do you love the shift book so much? Because I think you're quite the shift book expert, and I realize that's also kind of where you relaunch yourself. But tell me, do you think it's relative today?
Oh my goodness, literally. Like, there's a couple of tactics that you'll read it and you'll be like, okay, that's not because technology is changing, whatever. The principles, the baseline, the fundamental truths and the myths in there have not changed. The market's always going to go up and down. And if you're not ahead of it and studying it, you're going to go probably down with it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite chapter of shift? Because I know you're like quite the shift. You teach it a lot. You have a favorite one right this second? You know how things change, but my favorite this week is this that I'm having a conversation about.
My favorite always is tactic 3, and that's the talent shift. And it's Gary goes into the definition of talent: somebody who is the right fit for the job that the business needs them to do, not what you feel like you need, what the right fit for the job the business needs them to do. They can do it well, and they're motivated to do it. It's like a ready, willing, and able buyer or seller. They have to be all 3 of those things at the same time. Otherwise, they're not the right fit. Yeah. So, and it doesn't matter if the market's going up or down, it has to be those 3 things. And in tactic 3 also, it talks about in the talent, if you had to make you see your numbers going down, and tactic 2 is remargining your business and the practical application on how to do that without cutting to the bone. But tactic 3, if you have people on your team that aren't performing and they need to go get a job, and I mean, we're not going to save everybody, and I'm not saying that to be like, again, Debbie Downer. There's literally people that they're not willing to do what it takes. Therefore, they should go find places where they can not do that under your expense. So, so there's steps. I think it's page 42 of Shift, and the 6 steps of what to do if you have to reforecast your vision, and you have to turn roles into more tasks because things have changed. And it is literally a play-by-play. It's like 10 steps. It's actually 10 steps of what to do when you need to reforecast that vision and let people go and or get all hands on deck.
I love that. That's so good, because sometimes the people that you've had in place in a different market are not the people you need in place for this next market, right? And so I love that you brought that up. Okay, so what are you most excited about moving forward here? What are you most excited about these days?
Continuing to invest and grow our portfolio, because there's people that are going to, again, there's still people that need to buy or sell. And we've been intentionally kind of squirreling away, like putting stuff out, been waiting for our game. Now, granted, we've still invested along in this crazy market, and or I'm not supposed to say that, in that market that was on an upward trajectory like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
And we know our game very well. So the fundamentals of our game are going to be in this next adjusted market, because we're married to you're married to the property, not the interest rate.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Exactly. Because that can change, right? That could change. Okay. So last parting thoughts. First of all, thank you so much for being on the show today and the
pleasure.
podcast for our listeners. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What is the last parting thought on anything about playing to win, or just your mindset around, being a shift-proof coach? Any last thoughts for our listeners today?
I mean, just be clear on where it is what it is that your heart desires, what gives you joy. And if you're not clear on that, get clear, because if you're going to go out and set goals and it's not tied to something that's really burning inside of you, you're just saying it to say it. And that's not fair to you. It's not fair to your family. It's not fair to the people your team members, your market centers. It's not fair. So just go find what gives you joy and make sure you're doing it for the right reasons.
Ah, that's so good. And that will be like cut on the podcast. Perfect. I love it. Nicole, thank you so much. This was amazing. You're amazing. And I'm so honored that you spent your time with us today. And thanks to our listeners. We've got some live listeners, and people come back and they'll listen on the podcast too. Just thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for all you do.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And we'll see you at family reunion.
We'll see you there. Take care.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
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 Thanks for listening.